Unbroken, a family's journey of love, faith, and survival.
I don't know what happens next, but I'm not scared.
For the director of music, a psalm of David. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. Now this I know. The Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God.
This is Unbroken, a journey of love, faith, and survival. In conjunction and collaboration of Unity Access and the AT Hot Corner. My name is Mike Mote. I'm joined by Israel Kazardis, our co-host on the AT Hot Corner podcast that you hear throughout the course of the year. Tonight, though, we're going to be telling a story of faith, survival, love, and miracles, folks. We all believe in miracles. We all hope for miracles in situations. Well, folks, we're going to talk about one that's actually happened and continues to unfold. And that is the story of Israel's wife, Leah. And Israel, I couldn't be more thrilled to be able to tell this story because as we're recording this, we're about to celebrate or recognize the 1-year anniversary of when this whole journey started. And like I say, glad that you have allowed me to help tell this story for you. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I am filled with anticipation, with nervousness. There is some fear in here, some anxiety, some just going back and remembering everything that occurred to us. And we're going to take you guys on that journey with us. It's a miracle that we're here. It's a miracle that we're able to talk about this just 365 days later. And I'm so glad to do it with you, my friend.
And this will have several episodes, and the first episode is entitled The Rupture, which is what you're listening to now. And there will be others that we will drop as we go along the timeline of how these events unfolded just 1 year ago. And so that's where we'll start, Israel. And let's get right to it. January 5th of 2022, or 2023, I should say, was a big day for you. A lot of things happening, a lot of positive things happening on this day. One, you were finishing up with our friends at Beyond Vision. It was your last day at work there, and you and your family, Leah, and of course your beautiful daughter, Chloe Ann, whom we have heard from throughout the course of our podcasts, who likes to incorporate her opinions on certain things. Of course, she's just now celebrated her second birthday. But you and the family were about to move and have and embark on a new journey and a new chapter in your work career at APH in Louisville. And all of this was about to take shape, and y'all were about to move, and everything was exciting, and that's where this story begins.
Yeah, Mike, well, as you very accurately mentioned, that time of year and that particular beginning of the year was a very transitional time for us. I want to take the audience back with me to December before I get into January 5th. I want to take them back to December, where on December 19th, I received an offer from the American Printing House for the Blind, an offer I couldn't resist. And it was an amazing opportunity that was going to have to happen very quickly. I remember I was on the bus on my way to work. I was going to travel to Michigan. No, not Michigan. Excuse me. I always keep saying Michigan, and it wasn't Michigan. It was South Illinois, where I was going to go visit Scott Air Force Base to help train a new member of our Beyond Vision staff. And I was on the bus on my way to work when I get this offer from APH. The first thing I do, I read it, I call my wife, and I email it to her. And she calls me back and says, "So I guess we need boxes, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." But it really does bring me back to just how supportive my wife was and enthusiastic, about starting over and starting a new career and an opportunity to explore. We've always liked to explore different cities and explore our environment and get out and about with our daughter. And so the plan was, we were going to move to Louisville. That very day, I decided that I was going to accept the offer from APH. And I decided that we were going to transition and move. And as you mentioned, we had just celebrated my daughter's first birthday. My beautiful baby girl, Chloe Ann, was born on December 15th, 2021. And I'm going to warn you guys now, there might be some times where I will stop because I will get a little emotional as I talk about these things. So we had just celebrated my daughter's first birthday. We were just offered an amazing opportunity to work with an amazing world-renowned company like the American Printing House for the Blind. So our life was looking up. Everything that we could have wanted was happening. We were planning on purchasing a home. We were planning on coming down to Louisville fairly quickly and starting with our lives and our new career. My wife has always loved to get out and about and participate in the community. She was looking forward to possibly even mentor students at the Kentucky School for the Blind, since APH is basically right across the street from the Kentucky School for the Blind. And we have a visually impaired daughter. My daughter was born with bilateral cataracts, and she had pupil surgery when she was a baby. So we knew that she was going to be low vision. We just don't know how low vision she is until she's able to tell us. So I was excited about joining APH because obviously my career in helping our organization was ultimately going to come back to my house basically twice. Not only with the money I make, but with the products that we produce, the educational aids, the books, the braille that will impact my daughter's life.
Not to go too deep into the change, but it was going to help you financially as well. It was going to get you set up so that you were going to be able to take care of not only your needs as a family, but hers as well. That was a big part of this, and that was part of the reason why you were making this change.
It was a huge part of it. I had enjoyed my career at Beyond Vision. I had enjoyed a lot of success over the last few years. We launched fairly successful programs at Beyond Vision that I won't go into too many details because I don't know if I can talk about it. But we had a very good run, and I made friends. I had a community. I had everything that you could want in Milwaukee, and it was time to start over. Again, as you accurately mentioned, it was just a good opportunity that I couldn't pass up to provide for my family. And ultimately, what I want as a husband, as a father, is to be able to say to myself, this is what I do for a living, and this is what helps my family move forward and be comfortable and have what they need.
And of course, we all want that in our lives, and you were getting that opportunity. And may I point out, you and I met because of one of the successful programs that Beyond Vision helped launch several years ago. So that's part of this deal too. So a lot was changing for you. And they graciously, agreed to support you. They certainly miss you, and I'm sure they miss you to this day, but they were supportive of you and wanted to give you a send-off as you and your family started to make this transition. And that send-off happened on January 5th. That was your last day with Beyond Vision, which is kind of where we moved to in this discussion. because that's when things took a turn and your path changed, and you began a journey that really had a lot of twists and turns that we're going to cover in the course of these podcasts. And the very first one is January the 5th and the significance of this day. Tell me how the day started, Israel. What was this day like for you, leading into the situation that unfolded?
I'm going to start by apologizing to the audience because, again, I will take my time with this. I tend to get a little emotional every time I talk about it, because it's just an impact that it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe in so many words. Sometimes the words just are very difficult to come by. But that day began like any other day. I was thrilled and excited, and as you mentioned, Beyond Vision supported my decision to relocate and move on. And they were going to organize a goodbye party for me. And everybody knows I like beer, so there was going to be some beer and some getting together with some friends and now former colleagues. And that day began with that excitement and anticipation. I woke up. I got ready for work. I was eating something in the kitchen when I hear Leah get up and she comes over. At this point, she had just received her second guide dog, Yacht. She walked past Yacht. He put his nose on her. She pet him. She walked to the kitchen where I'm at. And I'm like, hey, good morning. And she's like, good morning. And she sounded normal. Everything was fine. And I said, how are you feeling? Did you sleep okay? And she said, yeah, slept great. No problem. She is like, I feel a little tired though, so I'm going to go back to sleep. Do you need anything? And I'm like, no, I've already got my coffee. I've already got breakfast going. I'm about to leave. This is about 4:30 in the morning, folks. I would catch my first bus to work at about 4:50, 4:55 from downtown Milwaukee. And so my wife came up to me and gave her a hug, kissed her on the forehead, and said, I'll see you later at the party, honey. Okay, go back to bed. Baby's still sleeping. Take advantage of it. She went back to bed.
Sure.
And we all know that it's pretty tough when you have children and they're sleeping. You better take advantage of the opportunity that you have.
You either take advantage of it or get a lot of work done around the house. One of the two.
Exactly. You do one or the other.
So you're having a normal day at work. You're having a normal day at work, right? I mean, and that's just kind of how you left it. And you go on to work and everything is, like it, you're having a good last day at work. When did you, was there any indication that what was going to happen later on that day? Was there any indication that anything was wrong throughout the course of the day when you checked in?
None. I last heard from my wife at about 11:30. Got a text message from her saying, hey, I'm going to put Chloe-Ann down for a nap so that she's not grumpy while we're at your party. And I'm like, okay, we'll see you there. I'm excited. Me too. Love you. Okay. And
wow. You remember that conversation that vividly. That's amazing.
The word, my friend, to the word.
Wow.
I go on. I'm having a lunch meeting with a couple of friends, a couple of colleagues. And again, everybody's saying their goodbyes, and we're all trying to be productive also. It wasn't just a fun day either. We were all also trying to be productive and make sure that I was leaving everything set up for the next person. And so we were in the middle of a meeting when I get a missed call from my wife at 12:36 p.m. This missed call is a little difficult for me to talk about, but upon review later, way later, it was the call where my wife was having a seizure following the rupture. I heard her on my voicemail. She was convulsing. I could clearly hear it. I could hear her trying to say something. But basically, it was just a convulsion sound. She sounded like she was choking or couldn't breathe. There was about 3 minutes and 30 seconds of that before the voicemail cut off, because she was unable to hang up her phone. I did not know that because I didn't review her message. I didn't have time, and I didn't review her message. So I go on about my day. We go to a bar. We have a drink or two. I'm texting Leah. I'm like, hey, where are you? I called her a couple of times. And I figured that she was just probably having a tough time with Chloe Ann. Because sometimes babies can be temperamental. Our child had just turned 1.
Yeah.
And not all the teeth had come in yet. So there was still a little bit of that going on where she could be very temperamental. And I figured, well, Leah said she was tired early in the morning. Maybe she changed her mind and, doesn't want to come. So I proceeded to have dinner and a drink with our colleagues, our former colleagues. And at the end of the night, when we're getting ready to leave, I tell a friend to drive me back to the office so that I can catch the bus from there. And she says, no, I'll take you home. It's on the way. It's fine. I'll take you home. And I'm like, okay. So I took a ride from her. And I get to my apartment. I go upstairs. At this point, I am worried, obviously, because Leah doesn't ever sleep this long. I'm like, she's either asleep or mad at me, honestly.
Yeah.
She's mad at hubby.
But it's never... It never crosses your mind that something
never crosses my mind
horribly
that
wrong.
Is terribly wrong. No, I go up on the elevator and come out, and when I come out, I hear my daughter.
What time is
crying.
it, by the way? What time is it, by the way? Do you know?
Yeah.
Can you guess an estimate of what time it is?
It is 6:45 p.m.
Okay, so
my wife called me at
late, but
my wife called me at 12:36 p.m. It is now 6:45 by the time I make it home.
Okay.
I get out of the elevator and I hear my daughter just crying. And I'm like, oh my Lord, this is a bad day. Like, she is having a bad day. And I go and I open the door and I hear a noise that's out of place, wrong. Some call it the death rattle. It sounds like a snore, but it's not a snore. It's when your lungs are starting to fill up with fluid, is what they explained to me medically.
Wow.
Basically, what I came into, Mike, was my wife beginning to suffocate, to drown. And that's the noise that I heard. She had the rupture, and I came home almost 7 hours later and found her that way.
So this is about approximately 15 till 7. You come into the room, the baby's crying, and you walk in and you hear the baby obviously distraught because she doesn't know what's going on at this point, just barely 1. And you hear that sound. So obviously you know that something is really, as you said, out of place and horribly wrong. So what do you immediately do?
My dog, Floyd, has always been very attached to Leah. Mm-hmm. And when I saw my dog basically drop down next to her, I let go of his harness. I rushed in. I turned off the speakers because he had been listening to country music, and there was country music playing. No, I don't remember the song. At this point, I'm not paying attention to anything but Leah. And I try to wake her. She's not waking. I realized that she had already she had vomited, and I'm sorry to be graphic to the audience. And she was beginning to drown. She was drowning. I immediately called emergency services. They came in about 2 minutes, the fastest response. But those 2 minutes, I can tell you, my friend, those 2 minutes seemed an eternity for me.
Yeah, I could imagine that time just sort of stood still at this moment, because all of a sudden you walk into a situation where it is, you're in desperate need, and you're just trying to think through what you need to do and also do things very rapidly. That's a lot. That's a lot to even think about.
Coming in, calling emergency services, picking up my daughter. My daughter's diapers had soaked through with urine from how long she had been in her playpen. And to my wife's credit, a mother's love just knows no bound. She knew, my wife, right at the end, she knew that something was terribly wrong. She made sure that her baby was safe. She put her down on the playpen where she wouldn't get hurt. A lot of things could have happened. She could have fallen on her. The baby could have hit her head on a wall. I mean, so many more devastating things than the situation I was already facing could have happened. But she knew, and her instinct was to protect her baby. So
did you have anybody living near your apartment? Was there any neighbors close by, like anybody there?
Yes. And again, to me, it raises so many questions of, what we've become as a society. When you can hear a child cry for hours and hours at a time and nobody comes over to check. It just raises a lot of topic for conversation there that I don't really want to get into right now. But
yeah, honestly, I was just curious, because I'm thinking, there's probably in an apartment setup, you've got a lot of, you're pretty close to people, yet no one bothered to, or felt the need to check in. So anyway, so we move forward, and you're on the phone with emergency services, and you said they responded very, very fast. Yeah. Did you call anyone else?
Yeah, I called my friend who had just dropped me off. And she jokingly was like, because in the car we were talking, and she was like, "You're going to be in trouble." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." And so I call her back, and she's like, "Did they kick you out?" And I couldn't even speak. And I'm just like, "I need your help now. It's an emergency." I told her what happened. I told her the situation that I came into. And she's like, "Oh my God." And she immediately turned her car around and came back. And Leah was gone by the time my friend made it back. That's how quickly emergency services responded. Not only were they there in record time, but she was gone. They took her in record time.
That kind of gives you an idea how desperate the situation was at this point.
Oh my gosh,
yes. They don't just do that. A lot of times, and they probably said to you that this is, serious, and we need to go ahead and I mentioned the person that your driver coming back, because this is a recurring theme throughout the course of this story about how people responded.
Yes.
I am, as I think about this from where I was sitting, and of course we're dear friends, and certainly have enjoyed a lot of the laughs that we've had enjoyed, but I will never forget the first I heard of this, and I'll share that in a moment. But so many people helped you in the days and the hours after you learned that your wife is in very dangerous situation here. A lot of folks mobilized to help you in your time of need.
I will tell you this: it's not easy to hear the paramedics come in and tell you she is dying. We need to go.
Wow.
When I heard those words, your whole world everything you think about is gone. When I heard the paramedic say she is dying, we have to go, I called my friend.
You can't
She
just
came
go to
back.
the hospital. You
Nope.
can't just go straight to the hospital because you
I
have a
have to
little
take
girl.
care of baby. Exactly.
Yeah, you have a little girl that is obviously very despondent because of all of that she's been through.
I had to change her. I had to bathe her, change her, get her into new clothes. And I had all that done by the time my friend came back. I'm telling you, I've never worked as efficiently as I did that day. I'll tell you that. So my friend came back and I started calling people. I called her sister first. And her sister wasn't available, so I called her wife. And I said, Casey, I need Heather immediately. This is an emergency situation. I need her. She got her on the phone, and I'm like, Heather, and I could barely speak at this point. I'm like, you need to get here. Leah's dying. And obviously, a call like that for a sibling is devastating. Devastating. She was immediately just overcome with emotion. What happened? She couldn't even speak. I'm like, I don't know. I came home and they're telling me that she's dying.
So at this point, as we said, time sort of stands still, but this is, you're going from, being out with, celebrating your career at Beyond Vision, and you walk into this, and in about 30 minutes, your life immediately changes, and you are in the middle of one of the toughest crises of any crisis that anybody would face. A dad, a husband, in the middle of it. And not to make light of this, but you're a blind man who needs to, you have to rely on transportation and help from other folks to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're taking care of a 1-year-old who doesn't understand what's going on with mommy. This is a very tough situation. So, this is where we are, and this is where you're facing the reality that your daughter's going to lose a mom and you're going to lose a wife in relatively short order if a miracle doesn't take place.
Yeah.
I can remember I was working a basketball game that night, and I kept getting phone calls from you. I got 2 or 3 calls, and I could not take them, and I didn't know what you wanted. But then I woke up the next morning, and I usually get up really early for work because I work on Eastern time, and so I was up at about 5:30. And as I step out of the shower and I'm getting ready for work for the day and getting ready to get my day started, my phone rings, and it's about 6 a.m. Friday morning, and it's you. And I'm like, and I pick up the phone, and I'm, aggravating you because that's what we do. And I'm like, man, it's you. It's odd for you to be up this early. What you're actually going to work early this morning, and just having a little fun. And then the voice that I hear on the other end immediately tells me that something is just not right. So I understand that sinking feeling in your gut, because I've known you both. I've known Leah for longer than I've known you. And I consider you both dear friends of mine. It had to be a night from hell. just to be honest, you were facing the devil and all of his angels that night, unfortunately.
That is correct. I get to the hospital that night, finally, after being able to be dad, as you mentioned, and take public transportation to the hospital. I took a Lyft. I wasn't going to waste my time with the bus.
Public transportation via Lyft to go be with his wife who may be dying.
Yeah.
I hope that sinks into folks who are listening to this who have your vision. Continue on, though. Go ahead.
I get to the hospital. I go to the emergency department. They immediately rush me to the back. And the doctor just gets in front of my face. They can be very intense. And he said, "You need to talk to me. You need to tell me the truth. Was she doing any drugs? Is there anything that we need to worry about?" And I'm like, "No, sir. She never does drugs. She's never done drugs in her life." I'm like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Your wife is dying. She is in very critical condition. We don't know what's going on at this point. We are trying to determine what's going on, but she is not going to make it tonight." And to sit there with a medical professional telling you cold, hard facts as they see them. I was rocked to my core, rocked completely to my core. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. I pinched myself a couple of times. And again, not to make light of things, but I'm like, man, did I drink too much tonight? And I'm like, I hope this is a terrible, horrible nightmare. But it wasn't.
Were you in a headspace, and let me just ask it this way, were you in a headspace where you really thought it was that serious, or were you just trying to figure out exactly what was going on? I mean, were you scared at this point, or were you just, how did you feel hearing this? It had to be hard to hear, but it also had to be really tough to process, knowing that just a matter of hours ago, you were talking to a healthy wife in the kitchen.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, it was, in more ways than one, it was a very sobering experience. Those couple of drinks I had with my colleagues were no good. I was completely feeling everything. The emotions were raw, but I couldn't shut down, Mike. I had to act. I had to protect my daughter, and I had to make sure that my wife got taken care of quickly. And it wasn't until about 2:00 in the morning when a neurologist comes to me and he lays out the cards, and this is what happened. She had a ruptured brain aneurysm. It is the first time that I'm hearing the words ruptured brain aneurysm. At this point, I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know what an aneurysm is. What are we talking about here? They explain it to me. She had a weakened wall in her veins where blood was able to basically rush into this area that they call a berry, and then the berry just pops, and then the blood quickly rushes into the space that's left between that area, and the chemicals in the blood irritate the brain, which is what causes the swelling. And I know this now. When I'm sitting there at 2:30 in the morning, dazed, not understanding what's happening, and the neurologist tells me the following. He says, if your wife survives tonight, she will never be the same. She will have multiple disabilities. At this point, we don't even know if the aneurysm, if the wounds from the aneurysm have caused irreversible brain damage. She may not even survive tonight. The only reason we're going to bother with treatment and an intervention is because your wife is young. Normally, in cases where there are too elderly or too infirmed, there's nothing that can be done anyway, even if they wanted to. So that's the reality. I spent the entire night in the hospital. I go home at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just a zombie.
Was anybody with you when you received this news?
Nope.
So you're handling this by yourself, as her husband, as the dad. Where is Chloe Ann?
Chloe Ann is at home with my friend who came back. And
Watch
she
her.
was gracious enough to stay with my daughter. She knew the gravity of the situation. She calls her husband and she's like, hey, this is going on. He needs me. I'm going to stay here as long as they need me. And he was gracious enough to let his wife help me.
Wow. Folks, this gets better, but it's not good right now. And I want you all to understand we're getting this news and we're going through this, and there's certain parts of this story that I didn't even know. And I'm sitting here holding my own breath as we're doing this podcast. And I hope that it's real and it feels just as real to you as it does to us. This does get better, and what an amazing story we will be telling in the future episodes. But this is at this moment is a very dire situation that he is dealing with on the day of January 5th of 2023. That moves into January the 6th when I first get word of this. And I had the privilege of praying with you over this. And I must say that a lot of other people started doing the same thing. A lot of folks who knew that prayer worked, and we began to intercede on your behalf, and we began to trust that the Lord would intervene, that Jesus Christ himself would hear from us, and not only help Leah, but help you all go through this, the family. So you go home, you tell, you're kind of in a daze at this point because you've got to be exhausted physically and mentally after all of this. What happens then?
My friend just sees the way I walk in, and she wakes up and she looks at me and she's like, please tell me she made it.
So how did you respond to that inquiry?
I just looked at her and I told her it's serious, but she's still alive and she's fighting.
And that's where we will end this first podcast episode, The Rupture. This was one of the wildest days in your life, Israel. There's no other way to describe it. There are not words to describe this 24-hour period where you go from a perfectly good morning to a celebratory day to absolute terror and horror at what you find when you get home, and now to a point where your wife is fighting for her life in a hospital with doctors who are trying to determine what happened. This story has many twists and turns. This is just the beginning. We will have more episodes. There's several to come, and we're going to tell this whole story because this is a story of faith, love, and a journey that you will just want to stay tuned to because it ultimately ends with survival. And folks, this is the work of the Almighty God. And we can't wait to tell you the rest of the story. So join us again. Israel, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for sharing this part of your family story with us. I hope it blesses many, many people.
This has been Unbroken, a family's journey of love, faith, and survival. Episode 1, The Rupture. Produced by Unity Access Media in collaboration with AT Hot Corner Podcast. Visit us on the web at athotcorner.com. Directed by Israel Cázares. Hosted by Mike Mote. Music used under license by pond5.com. Thank you for listening. Special thanks to Ryan Harvey, webmaster. Also to Roger Allen, audio supervisor.